Hello, folks. Welcome back to the show. Today I am going to talk about the world of internet chess because this is something that has been bugging me for a while, and actually a couple of things came up during my coaching sessions rather that I noticed, and I tried to make sense of what's going on, and I came to a couple of conclusions that are rather interesting, and I thought that I would share it with you. I have been coaching now for almost 10, no, actually more than 10 years. And my coaching clientele, especially in the past couple of years, have changed very, very dramatically. First and foremost, not only from predominantly juniors to predominantly grown-ups or adults, but also from people who don't really have the ambition to be a very good chess player to just someone who just wants to get better, which is really good. And I love teaching those who are just amateur players who would like to become a better club players or just have a better understanding of chess. What I didn't quite realize was the fact, however, that my teaching approach towards these people will have to be different. And not necessarily because their aims are different, but the way how they were introduced to chess, the way how they play chess, and the way how their basic image about chess is compared to my previous students. And the main difference here lies in the fact that today or nowadays a lot of people exclusively play chess online and nowhere else. This would have been completely unimaginable a decade or so ago. And nowadays, I find it's a stock standard phenomenon that I do come across a lot of people who play an awful lot of chess online who actually never touched a chess piece, or hardly ever. Like if I ask them when was the last time when you played an overboard game, the answer would be, and that's a shocker. Like, that is just such a drastic change. And at first, I didn't realize the importance of this very, very major mindset change, or if you like, lifestyle change. Because when I was a junior, I grew up in chess clubs. And chess club is basically to chess what school is to learning, although probably many people would disagree with this. Or what is a library for the lover of books, probably is a better way to put it. Because when I went to a chess club, especially as a kid, I was breathing chess in. Like, wherever I looked, there were chessboards, there were people playing. When you played a game, there were two people going next to you on either side constantly, and when you had a little bit of a time to look around, you looked away from a chessboard and you looked onto another. So inevitably, you just inhaled chess in. People around you were talking about chess. Even without understanding, or before I understanding, I was already exposed to bad bishops, minority attacks, exchange sacrifices, you name it, and just kept on coming into my brain, and not only mine, but to everybody else's who was around. And nowadays what you see is a dude sitting down in front of his computer like I am now and pushing virtual chess pieces on a virtual chessboard without really getting any information in, without getting any advice, any hints, any support, any community feel, if you like, about chess. It has become such an isolated and, in that regard, such a sad pastime to do that it really is an eye-opener to me now that I need to teach these people differently because they do not have that background that I had as a child. And the other thing is that as a regular goer to chess clubs, I was also exposed to chess books because no chess club would exist without a substantial chess library. So if I had no one to play with, highly unlikely, but for the argument's sake, I straight went to the cupboard, grabbed the chess book and read. And I kept on reading chess books. So again, the chess knowledge, without me noticing it, because I didn't read chess books because I wanted to learn chess. Stuff that. I wanted to have fun. I enjoyed reading chess books, and so while I was doing that, the knowledge just kept coming in without me noticing it. Again, nowadays we are exposed to the internet, which is not necessarily a good source of chess knowledge, really, because you don't know how to filter it, and even if you do know, you don't necessarily go where you should go. Meaning that, like, most people on club level struggle with not really being able to calculate too well, and they are not really good at making plans, especially, or rather I should say, this is my experience anyway with my students. And so not a lot of videos are out there, and even if you do, you don't necessarily know which one to watch, and sometimes the good ones are boring, and so on and so on and so on. So the point of this big rant is that sitting in front of a computer for the sake of becoming a better chess player, sitting in front of a computer, to me, is not really a goal that anyone should strive for. And this is what I keep on telling to my students too, even those who 100% fall into this category of only playing online for the sake of becoming a better player online, is to go to a chess club. Play over the board chess. That's what chess is. This virtual world with virtual pieces is an excellent replacement when there is nothing better available. But real chess competition and real chess will always be played in 3D with real chess pieces. I can't tell you how much more I love to play Blitz over the board than on the screen. And funnily enough, I'm way better over the board and on the screen, because the two-dimensional factor takes away a lot of visual effects from me, or that's how I explain it to myself anyway. And as a result, I am not as good of a player on the screen than I would be on the board. And once again, the educational value is also incredible. When you go to an over-the-board competition, you rub shoulders with other players, you watch other players, you talk to players. Like the mere fact that you are able to communicate instead of trash-talking other people. I mean, you don't have to, but it's very rare that you can have a meaningful conversation online while you are playing a game or after the game in the post-mortem. It's just, yeah, random stuff. Plus, you don't really know how good your opponent is, therefore you don't really know how reliable their advices. Whereas if you are face to face with chess players, that you know that, oh yeah, that guy is 2200 FIDE, so if he comes here and tells me that I should have done a queenside attack there, then I should probably believe him or take his advice on board. So it's really sad to see that over-the-board chess is dying out, and I try to promote it as best as I can, because to me, when it comes to chess, nothing can replace a silent tournament hall with 200 plus players, ranging from top grandmasters to everyday amateurs. Walk around the room, walk among the hours of tables, people playing on them. It is just what chess is really meant to be. Ticking clocks, well, not anymore because they are digital too, but that's just the chessy atmosphere. If you have never experienced that, you don't even know what chess is really, and yet we are playing thousands of games on a daily basis on the screen. Look, I didn't become a better player by 1 inch by staring at computer screens. I did make use of the computer eventually, but everything that to me revolves around chess revolves around three-dimensional chess pieces, chess players, and so on. The reason why I got into this big rant, actually there are two. Number one is that once again, I would encourage everybody as best as they can to spend as much of their chess time with real chess, over the board chess rather than online. And number two, and this is a funny connection, because I wanted to talk a little bit about how to use the engine. People use the engine left and right and center, some even during their games, and they don't really benefit from it. And it is a very, very tricky machine indeed. The engine is not an easy one to use, because we're talking about basically a second player who is able to assist you without telling you words, but telling you the best moves. But it can't tell you why. And so a lot of people really, really do struggle. I see on Reddit all the time people asking questions like, according to the engine, X and Y and Z is the best move here and I don't get it why. Of course you don't get it why. You are trying to learn what's 1 + 1, and then a mathematics professor comes to you and tries to talk to you about the theory of relativity, or a physicist professor would be probably better, physics professor. How would you understand that? Of course not. It's not possible. And you're not meant to either. So, what I suggest to people to do when it comes to using the engine, because undoubtedly it's a useful tool, a super good tool, is to actually learn how to use it best. And in my opinion, this is the following. The best use of the computer, especially in the early stage of your chess career, is purely to do tactics check. So what it means is that you set up a position, you have a feeling that you missed a win in one of your games, but you couldn't figure it out. You feed it to the computer and it will smack it into your face that, oh dude, you just missed the mate in 4, mate in 4. And then you will see that, gotcha, okay, so that's what I was meant to do. Oh, I missed the fork here in 2 moves because it was quite a subtle trick and I didn't realize it. Tactics, that's the number one use of the computer. It's basically a blunder check. That you could look at a position, you just can't figure out what's going on. You turn on the computer and then you go like, right, got it. What the computer is really, really bad at, because it can't do it, but people expect the computer to do that regardless, is to tell you what it's doing and why. Well, it's telling you what it's doing, but why? You're getting none of it. And so people regularly misuse the computer and try to copy the way how the computer plays, which is next to impossible for a lot of reasons. But the number one is that you don't understand what the computer is doing. It can't tell you why it's doing what it's doing. So why would you try to attempt doing exactly the same thing? You can't possibly do that. So computer is very best for tactics in general. If you are not sure of a plan in a certain middle game scenario, and you are a rather weak club player, I would say it's 100% useless. Because it's going to show you the best move. You will go like, oh, okay, so that's the best move. Why? And you keep on looking at the moves that the computer offers, and unless it's a very obvious plan, you're not going to see deeply enough into it so you would understand what it's doing. So the only way to use a computer well, especially if you are a basic beginner, amateur, I would say anybody rated under 2000 FIDE, is with the support of a coach. So that when you have got a problem, when you come across a game where you don't understand what's happening, the computer comes up with a suggestion, more often than not you still go like, I don't know why the computer says that. You need to be driven or led. Rather, someone needs to hold your hand and tell you that the reason why the computer says that is because of blah, blah, and blah. And then the two together is going to mash into something hopefully rather sensible. I'll show you an interesting case of me using the computer, and I'm going to give away a very valuable opening secret here actually. But given that I have retired from practical chess now for a while, I don't mind doing this to you. So I was analyzing this variation a fair few years ago. And I found a variation here with bishop takes e6 with a fair few grandmaster games. Knight takes e5, excellent riposte, bishop takes, queen takes, and most games fizzled out into a very boring draw after a short while. And I was very unhappy with this outcome because I thought that in this position the black side of the board is rather cramped. So I would rather try to build this up instead of executing a cheap tactics. And so I came up with queen g4. And that was the moment when I turned on the engine. Although I was pretty sure that queen c7 was best, because castles force to bishop h6, and the mate can only be prevented by sacking an exchange, and in this scenario the exchange is not going to be sufficient compensation. So queen c7, and then I am sitting here thinking, alright, well, bishop f4 is a no-brainer. If knight takes e5, that loses to queen g7, and all of a sudden there are 2 pieces hanging. So that's game. But then the computer came up with this quite nice g5. And we're like, uh-oh, that's a bit of a problem, because if I drop the bishop back, then h5, h4. And then I look at the screen, and it comes up with bishop takes e6. Now, granted, I would have come up with bishop takes e6 myself, because it's a very tempting move. But then after g takes f4, I look up, and it says castles. And we're like, what on earth is the business here? We just sacked a piece. Very visibly, we don't have any obvious threats. Okay, we do have knight d5, but currently loses to queen e6 check, queen e5 check. Taking there is a lemon, and a quick calculation proves that after take, king takes, queen check, king g8, queen check on e8, bishop blocks, and I ran out of steam because queen e5 check is coming. If that was too fast for you, I suggest you check that line. I don't want to play it out. And so I'm going like, what's the story there? And I look up again and the computer says castles. And if at this stage you don't stop and go like, hang on. This is just weird. Then you misuse the computer. Because by now, me being a 2400 international master, I'm going like, what the heck is going on? We just sacked the piece. Yes, I get it. We have amazing compensation. Yes, we do have an attack. But we have got a second piece hanging. And we just casually castled. Like, what the heck is going on here? What are we doing? And this is a key moment, and I'm going to teach you a technique here that is going to be super useful if you are dealing with the computer. And a lot of people don't think of the computer or using the computer this way, and I reckon this is one of the best things you can do. When the computer comes up with a move where you are just totally dumbfounded, like you go like, I don't know what's going on. What is our plan? The best thing you can do is to try to play a perfectly irrelevant move for the other side. Something that doesn't change the structure, something that would look like a total lemon, the ultimate, most horrendous move on the board. And the reason why you do that is because against this, more than likely, the computer actually will show you what he intended to do in this case. So right now after h6, I'm looking at the computer's recommendation and it says take on f7, king takes, and we have got a mate in 2, 3. Okay, so king here, king here, king here, queen g6 and 96 mate. Okay, so now immediately we realize that, okay, I didn't play a good enough bad move because h6 weakened the g6 square, otherwise it wouldn't have worked. So, okay, let's try on. I will play b4 because I still don't understand what we're playing for. So the computer says bishop takes, king takes, queen h5. Yes, I did get that. Now the king can't go to either of these two squares because of the knight, 4 queens, the house. But what's to go after king g8? And now we realize the very clever point. Compared to the previous line, if in this position they play bishop f8, this is no longer a check. So now again we can come around with queen e6, knight e5. And likewise, if the knight goes back to f8, now we have knight d5. If I tried it in the previous line without playing castles, after bishop takes, queen check, king here, I'm going to play it out for you now. Knight f8, knight d5, queen takes e5 check, and we can resign. But now, because of we are castled, it's all a-okay. And after b4, it's basically a whitewash. After knight d5, knight takes e7, it's going to be a mate very soon. In fact, according to the computer, best is to sack the queen with rook a7. Rightio. So we have got the plan now. And I'm getting very excited by this stage because it seems like I've come up with a very important opening novelty. One that was never played, or not when I checked it anyway. It was a fair few years ago, so I was hoping to score a couple of victories. So I went like, alright, so let's have a look, and then what happens here after castles if they play something decent rather than b4. Well, it turns out there isn't any decent moves, but this is the type of position where you leave the computer on because it's wildly tactical. It's all about take, capture, check, I go there, they go there. This is gonna end in the next 10 moves one way or another. There will be no peaceful outcomes here. Okay, so let's see what black can do. Obviously, take loses to check, and then knight e6 wins the whole house, so that's not on. Let's try knight e5. Very typical counter mechanism, counter defense mechanism to try to swap queens off or to hassle the queen. And incredibly enough, my old variation here, although now queen h5 seemed to contradict it, is knight d5. Again, a fantastic attacking move. They attack your queen, you attack theirs, and after knight takes, king f8, bishop takes c8. An amazing story. The knight hits the rook, the bishop hits the bishop. After there, sack, takes, and we take that. And we have got a fantastic position with 2 pawns ahead. Black has got 17 isolated pawns on the board and a completely unorganized or uncoordinated army. White is winning. Awesome stuff. Bishop takes e6 again. So yeah, gf4 castles. What else have I not looked at? Okay, queen e5, rook e1, beautiful chess, bringing in all the dudes, and that's basically the end of it. Black is already sacking the queen again. So if you are not, okay, once again, you might go like, okay, I don't get why we have to sack the queen. What happens if they go there? And just look at what the computer recommends. It's knight d5. The threat now is to take on either of these, followed by taking e7. So he needs to get out of this pin, and after bishop takes f7, again the position is collapsing. Now when you are playing it over the board, you're still very, very nervous. And you go like, wow, am I going to win it, or is it good enough? Look at the computer's assessment. Almost 10. So white is basically borderline mating black here, but the point again is that we make sure that tactically what we're doing is sound. Anyhow, I don't want to bore you too much with the details of this. There's one more line that I really liked here, and that was, what was it? Castles. And yes, here the computer came up with bishop takes e6, but again, I wasn't overly excited about the prospects of knight e5, queen here, nor the cheap trick. Typical computer move here again. And after castles, bishop h4, queen e3, whilst this position appeals to me a lot for white, I was hoping to get something more out of it. So then I went, can't I take it with the knight? And at first, and this is another thing that I really highly recommend you to do, don't fall for the first initial assessment. Did you see that? When I played out here knight e6, the first assessment is minus 0.5. Look, now it went back immediately to white ahead. But the first time, rewind the video if you don't believe me, it was for long seconds on the exact same assessment with the minus in front of it. So black is in the lead. And even after takes, some engines don't find the immediate advantage, which lies in the fact that after castles, the whole entire black army is just totally jammed in. And after knight c6, queen e6, we have got the threat of knight d5 as well as queen g8 mate. And after rook f8, knight d5, we are going to regain some material in some shape or form. The c6 knight is very awkwardly hanging now. And after queen b7, it is actually a beautiful scenario. And again, I discovered most of it with the aid of the computer. After rook f1, black is very struggling to keep the back rank in order, because he can't connect the pieces in the back rank. So now I'm threatening to leave the knight and then just take on f8 and then mate on g8. So he has to do something fancy like knight f6, opening up the bishop's diagonal. But after queen d6, golly gosh, hanging. It's a lot of stuff awkwardly hanging. And the beautiful coup de grace, rook d8, rook takes f6. A fantastic finish to this line. If takes, then rook f8 is mate, and if they take, then queen check, and now king g8 is met by mate in 1. So queen g7 is forced, and after queen takes, bishop b7 and queen b6. I'll start this up. Sorry, queen f6. Yeah, I knew that there was something here. We have got 2 pawns for the exchange and a lasting initiative. I'm not quite sure if actually that was the best line here that we could do, but I believe it is. Yeah, so queen d6, rook d8, rook f6 takes, queen g7. Yeah, king g8 was a bit of a lemon. Queen c6. So yeah, this is a typical computer line. It is still actually quite a hard labor to convert it, but my initial assessment was wrong because we actually have 3 pawns for the exchange here, which should be plenty enough. So this is how you use the computer. When you have got a super sharp position, you use it for your raid, but even then you rely at first on your own IDs, because the computer is not going to suggest here knight takes e6. And to some extent I prefer that line, it's arguable, but the point I'm trying to make is that you make an assessment, you make a call, you go like, I reckon I should take this because then you turn on the engine to see whether it supports it or not, and that's how you go. And I wanted to show you one more thing which I find quite amazing about endgame, about engines. I'm not sure if my chess base is going to cooperate with me on this one. No, it just went really funny. Okay, so I'm going to very quickly fix this while the recording is on. So let's just get rid of with chess base. Yep. Whew, that was dicey. Except that now I won't be able to turn on the engine. Oh, no. Right. Okay, so here is what we are going to do. I'm going to show you a position because this is really awesome fun. It took me a long while actually to realize how cool this position was. Well, not a long while, but let me get to the point and you will see it. No, I want that bishop there, dude, not here. Bin it. Alright. No bin. Can I put a bin on the board? No. Right. This is the position. Black to move. And black is a solid rook up. And incredibly enough, this position is not winnable. Yep, you heard me correct. The position is not winnable. Because black can never get out of this pin. I'm not sure if I set it white to move or black to move, but yeah, I set it on white to move. So what white needs to do here is to fiddle back and forth here to make sure that the king can never go to d5 getting out of this pin. And black is helpless. Can't get out of this pin. No matter what it tries to do, they just can't get out of the pin. And as soon as the king crosses the e5, bishop takes back on e5, and the bishop can't be won on the pin the same way how the knight was, and therefore the position is a draw. Now I haven't tried this, but I'm 100% sure that if I set this up for the computer, it's going to get a rage attack on me, and it will claim that black is totally winning, and I will probably put it back onto chess base if I can. And I don't really know how badly it will mess up the recording of this video. Proven wrong. Okay, I'm not gonna set it up then, because yeah, it recognized immediately that it's a positional draw. Now, sometimes it does do it quite fast, sometimes it doesn't. What I was trying to tell you with that was that endgames are not necessarily the best thing to analyze with computers, because they are very often prone to judge positions based on material balance rather than the actual endgame knowledge that should be applied to that position. If you remember still my epic fail with the previous rook ending video that I published not long ago with the pawn pushed up with the rook in front of it, that position is assessed heavily winning for the pawn upside. I can't remember which one it was now. It was black. It was a pawn up. And the computer assessed it as easily winning for black, whereas I was told, and then, well, I didn't need to be told really, but I figured it out myself that that position was actually dead draw, and it is a dead draw. So don't really rely on the computer when it comes to endgames. That's my last piece of advice to you, and I will leave this position on just for your entertainment, because it's actually quite a brain teaser that despite of being a whole rook up, it can't be won. So this video, I was hoping to get two messages across. A, play chess over the board, and two, use the computer but use it wisely. And the best thing to do about that is to use a helping hand, preferably a coach, someone knowledgeable who can guide you with the computer. Otherwise it can end up in a massive mess. And I hope that you like that little Sicilian fragment that I showed you. I was very proud of that line, and I was really entertained when I analyzed it with the computer, because it came up with some remarkably cool mates. So I hope you guys liked the video. If you've got any questions, concerns, whatever, please post it below. I haven't heard any comments from you guys yet about what you want to get for reaching the 1000 subscribers. So please give me some ideas about what you would like me to do, and I shall do that for you. Alrighty guys, that's me for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back with more soon.